Flicker is a fluctuation of the light emitted from a source that is visible. Sometimes it might also not be visible. You can have flicker and don't see it. The cause of flicker is also different depending on the light type you're using. So all lights are connected to the mains power. We know the mains power is alternating current, so electrons are moving back and forth. In the UK, almost the whole world, they move 50 times a second, turn around 50 times a second, which means in 1 second, the light actually turns off 100 times. So yeah, I mean, an incandescent lamp, even though it turns off 100 times a second, you wouldn't perceive it, not even with a camera probably, because the filament stays so hot than that when the actual light is off, the filament just appears still on. The fluorescent lights is different. It's just that, the ballast increases that frequency. So that 100 times a second is increased by the ballast. But then the LEDs. So the LEDs are, we use drivers to convert AC current from the mains to DC, so to constant current. And a good driver should be able to just give you that smooth output, so it avoids flicker. Then dimming comes in. Dimming is a big cause of flicker in LEDs these days. So a lot of dimmers, most of dimmers control the output of the light by switching the LED on and off again very quickly to reduce the intensity. So yeah, to avoid flicker, you need to make sure you know the equipment you're using and you're working with. Choose the right driver.
It can happen for quite a few reasons. Some basic things that could just be the wiring, circuit board, control. It could be as simple as the lamp's come loose in the fitting. It just needs to be screwed in or pushed in more tightly. And one of the other common things at the moment is we've got old equipment with new equipment. So if you're in a house, for example, and you fitted new LEDs to a pot dimmer switch, the two things might not like each other and you might get flicker. So you might have to invest in making sure that everything's compatible. So your switches, dimmers and lamps can all talk to each other and that would reduce the flicker. You
have the electricity working on a particular frequency, which is anywhere from 50 to 60 hertz, depending on where you are in the world. And so the power is oscillating as it comes in. If you have phase dimmable power supplies, then you're going to have oscillation on the outputs of those. So one way to try and avoid flicker is using other forms of dimming. So things like 0 to 10 volt, Dali dimming, those are more stable on the outputs. Also making sure that the transformers that you're going to pair with the LED light sources have a high frequency output. Sometimes they can upgrade their frequency so that you don't get that flicker coming through.
And it's become much more relevant with LEDs because we flash LEDs on and off very quickly in order to make them work. And that's whether they're on at full brightness or whether they're being dimmed. It's often manifest when you take your iPhone out and you look and you see the kind of like strobing across the screen, which is the relationship between the flicker and the frame rate of the camera. And there's a growing amount of research which says that certain types of flicker are very bad for the human visual system and human health in general. And flicker can be avoided by using the right control gear with the right LEDs. So it's about making sure that you have the correct equipment combinations to make that stuff work. In the workplace, we're not really dimming lights. You'll have the lights on, you might have them at 75 or at 50 because we've got like a really high focus on how can we reduce energy consumption. But you go to something like a theatre and dimming there becomes absolutely critical. And you look at the cost over the last 5 to 10 years, and the LED cost has come down dramatically and the driver cost has gone up. And so you've now gone past the kind of crossover point where actually you can be paying more for a driver than the fixture. The fixture actually is quite easy to get right. The driver is absolutely not easy to get right. If you want a really good driver that's going to do a really good job of dimming at, 1% and not snap off, that's like where you're going to spend all your money.
There is a lot of testing, a lot of new product engineering that's been done in the past years to overcome the flickering. Firstly, drivers are so important. A good driver obviously will overcome partly that problem, but also the compatibility with the dimming modules, because most of the time with lamps, for example, the flickering happens because it is not, that specific lamps is not compatible with that dimming module. So it's important that we do check that what is being specified is fully compatible, and depends as well by knowing how much we want to dim that light, if that driver can push that down to the limit that we don't experience that flickering.